When a society's official language disconnects from its lived reality, a severe gap opens. To understand how a society processes this gap, we rely on the Brain Kinematics Model, or BKM. BKM is a framework that applies the physics of motion and energy transfer to cognitive and social behaviors. Under this model, we treat societal frustration not as an emotion, but as a physical force seeking release. We call this trapped energy collective strain. It is the accumulated historical memory of broken promises, unpunished hypocrisy, and blocked socioeconomic pathways. The target is contradiction, but directly attacking that contradiction is often impossible in heavily monitored societies. Under these conditions, satire functions as the structured, physical expression of contradiction under social constraint. This animated diagram displays the satirical force equation. It maps exactly how the intensity of a society's satire is calculated. Look at the numerator variables. Strain provides the raw pressure, memory provides the depth, and contradiction provides the target. Below that is the denominator, direct expression capacity. This represents the level of state censorship, or the physical danger associated with speaking the truth. When that expression capacity shrinks, the massive energy of the numerator does not simply vanish. To avoid catastrophic failure, the system actively recalculates, forcing the energy into a new state, phase-shifted irony. This relies on an emergency pathway called the symbol bank. A society routes its strain through animal fables, historical myths, and double meanings to safely bypass the censor and reach the audience. Authoritarian constraints cannot destroy critique. They merely change its shape from direct speech into coded irony. Iranian literary history provides a 700-year empirical dataset to stress-test this kinematic equation. This is the satire-style phase diagram. We use it to measure these historical shifts across three axes: X for direct to indirect, Y for literal to symbolic, and Z for emotional intensity. We start in the 14th century with Obaid Zakhani's classical masterpiece, Mouse and Cat. It plots high on the Y-axis for symbolism, far left on the X-axis indicating extreme indirectness, and high on the Z-axis for emotional intensity. This era was defined by extreme instability and predatory rulers. Because the capacity for direct expression was near zero, the writer heavily utilized the symbol bank, disguising a brutal political critique as a simple animal fable. When power is absolute, the most devastating moral critiques must disguise themselves as children's tales to survive. By the early 20th century, the Constitutional Revolution introduced massive social upheaval, reformist energy, and sudden press freedom. The sudden expansion of the direct expression denominator completely altered the physics of Iranian literature. Look at this new plot on the phase diagram. Moving entirely away from classical allegory, a new data point slams in low on the y-axis for literal interpretation, and far right on the x-axis for direct attack. This is the constitutional era. The trans-regional journal Maulan Nasruddin and Ali Akbar Dekhodaz Charand Parand defined this new phase state. The format splits into journalism, caricature, and episodic satire. This journalistic prose utilized colloquial language, low symbolism, and highly recognizable targets like corrupt clerics and despotic politicians. When censorship is removed, satire drops the mask. It transitions from a private literary exercise into a high-amplitude public weapon of mass reform. In the late 20th century, the 1979 revolution replaced the existing social order with a highly formalized ideological system. Subsequent decades of war and tightened cultural control clamped down on the capacity for direct expression. Returning to the diagram, the 1980s trigger a severe phase shift. The data point retreats from the direct quadrant, migrating back toward the left. Long-term strain and reduced hope generate a deeply internalized tragicomic zone of bitter irony. During the cautious 1990s revival of public satire, through publications like Gol Aga, writers relied heavily on double meaning, proverbs, and layered metaphors. The symbol bank pulses, doing the heavy lifting to keep the system from completely blocking. Blocking direct pathways mathematically forces a society to build a highly intelligent, silent community of readers, who instinctively know exactly what the satire really refers to. Entering the 21st century, the medium shifts from one-to-many print journalism to many-to-many networked platforms. This injects a massively scaled, instantaneous audience decoding network directly into the kinematic equation. This chart shows the modern digital era. It appears as a burst of multiple, rapidly flashing data points in the center of the phase diagram. Highly compressed hybrid forms like memes mix text and image, vibrating rapidly between direct and symbolic zones. We see a distinct rise in self-irony to process the absurdities of Iranian modernity and blocked social mobility, rather than just attacking institutions. Digital networks act as superconductors for collective strain, accelerating the release of tension through visual pattern recognition rather than long-form prose. This complete diagram visualizes the entire 700-year timeline. The data connects into a single, continuous oscillating waveform, rising and falling inversely to the level of censorship. The core physics principle is absolute. Societal strain never simply vanishes. If blocked directly, it will bend truth to find a vent. Whether the medium is oral storytelling, classical poetry, print newspapers, or digital memes, the stylistic form is merely a byproduct. The function remains absolute. Satire acts as a nation's ultimate diagnostic system, a mechanism of survival that bridges the contradictory gap between what a society is forced to say and what it actually experiences.